Hello. Been faffing around for ages and then I lost track of time, went down a rabbit hole and now I'm a bit late. So apologies for the 30-second delay in your working day. It's great to see you. I've had a haircut. Bit severe, gotta say. But at least I don't have to go to the hairdresser again for 2 to 3 business months and listen to the small talk, which nobody wants. Hello, we are going to talk about lovely things to do with consonants, as we do on a Thursday afternoon, and the weather is so pigging gorgeous at the moment. I do feel like we should have lessons outside or something today, shouldn't we? But we're not, we're inside looking at it from within whilst we pay attention to our data and processes. But that's what we do as trained professionals. What are we doing today? Usual sort of stuff. And if you happen to be joining for the first time, which I kind of hope you will be, there will be some people there because A, we're onboarding 6 new clients at the moment. So hopefully they're all full of beans and enthusiasm and want to listen to me monologue for an hour. B, I did a talk last week at the Society of Young Publishers and it was fabulous. I felt rejuvenated and, dare I say, had a sprig of hope. A little spring in my step as I went back to Edinburgh Station thinking, well, future's going to be all right. But anyway, if you listen to me then welcome. This is going to be a little bit more terse and business-like, isn't it? Because we're doing data and we're doing processes and we're doing how to run a publishing company properly. Possibly less uplifting, but I can try, can't I? I can try and inject a bit of enthusiasm. Every week we talk about these things. We talk about change because no matter how much sometimes we wish things would just jolly well stay the same for a bit, no, things are always changing. And today it's about more legislation changes in the UK, but we're a global community, aren't we? So it all is relevant to everybody. We always talk about reach, how to reach ever further, how to get our books and other products as far flung as possible in front of as many people as are relevant, understanding who our audience is and being able to reach them. It's kind of the point, isn't it, of a publisher, to make public. So that's what we talk about there. In terms of expertise, we like to take a little trip into some rabbit hole of delight where we get really good at something. So we're always learning, always discovering new intricacies about our wonderful industry. We go into depth, so in this segment we want to understand your data and processes to a sensible level of completeness. And then we want to do all of this at speed because no one's got any time in the day and we need to crack on and sell more books, do we not? So first up this week, in change, you thought you were going to have a lovely introduction to the delights of publishing. No, we're doing GDPR legislative changes and you'll enjoy it. Well, it's a bit like a disaster movie actually, isn't it? It's disaster movies manage to make disasters sort of be appealing and fascinating. And I always think this about data security, like, what you want is the opposite of a disaster movie. You want a completely quiet life where nothing happens in terms of data things going wrong. So I really like keeping on top of the latest in data legislation because it's one of the pieces of legislation I really am relieved we have. It's not often one can feel a sense of patriotism in this world, is it? But I do really like the UK GDPR and it's being enhanced. So June 2025, some new things came in and in the way of these things, they came in but they weren't going to be implemented until June 2026. Guess what? That's basically 5 weeks away. So I thought I would just make sure that you know about these because there's plenty of time to make these little tweaks to your data policies, your security policies, your privacy policies. because this is not to do with software, to be honest. It's not to do with consonants at all. But as a person who runs a business, who reads up on this stuff, I think I just want to make sure that all of our clients know about it, because as business runners and owners, we are obligated to obey the law, low bar, isn't it? So let's just have a little squiz at what some of those things are. And if I go to the UK government website on this, you won't believe how boring they make it. Oh my goodness. So there are some really good blog posts around. I suppose if you're the government, you have to cite your sources and you have to go into a lot of detail and you have to say provision bracket z in the so this is a good place to come, because this is from the horse's mouth, isn't it? But there are other places where you can learn what has changed. And there's this thing called the DUAA. It's the Data Use and Access Act of 2025. And as I understand it, I'm not a lawyer and all that, but as I understand it, this is like something that sits on top of GDPR, which was the General Data Protection Regulation that came in 2018. And it just sort of tweaks things. It takes feedback from people who have been obeying the law, saying, yeah, this is fine, but this is impractical. This bit doesn't go far enough. This bit goes too far. So it's it's an adjustment. It's an iteration. And I mean, really, to cut to the main bit in all of this, and you can read it upon your leisure, depending on what sort of company you are and what sort of processes you're following. I mean, Constance here, we don't do automated decision making. Not even sure what that is. Like workflows. I mean, I suppose if you're using AI things, then that's automated decision making. And so there's some things that you should look at here to make sure that you're keeping up to date with stuff. But from our point of view, the only change that I want us to make, which we're doing at the moment, is to make sure that there is a very clear way that a data subject can complain. So let me just look at complains here. Complain. Oh, they don't even say that. It's definitely in here somewhere, but they must use a fancier word for complains. Data protection, logging of law enforcement, transfer of personal data to third countries. That's a good one, actually. That's worth reading up on. Security exemptions. Yeah, loads of new things like there are different reasons why you're allowed to control personal data, aren't there? And some extra ones have been added on to that. There we go. Data subjects' rights to information. Oh no, that's an exemption. Oh God, it's in here somewhere. Here we go. Great. This is why it's so hard to read. Data subjects' rights. Clarify rules around subject access requests for organisations. And what that boils down to is make sure that you've got that process readily accessible on your website, so that anyone who wants to get in touch with you about how you're handling their data, whether as a data processor or a data controller, they can get in touch with you easier. If you want to avoid reading this dense stuff that goes around in circles, I cannot stress how much of a kind of a get out clause there is if you seek the Cyber Essentials certification. Now, it's not a get out, it's actually a get in. It gives you a certificate. It says, yes, I am I've understood all of my obligations under cybersecurity, and here's a certificate to prove it. But the reason that I recommend it so much is that it gives you this framework, it gives you this way in to figure out that these are the questions that you need to ask and be answering. So I just wanted to introduce you to the idea of doing this, first of all. Cyber Essentials is the program that I think you should Google and you should look at. And as I say, this is not for software companies particularly. it's for all UK companies who use a computer or have an online bank account or control any sort of data, or just basically be in business in 2026. So go and search up Cyber Essentials. You pay like 200 quid or something, and then you have a massive spreadsheet, and it's full of questions, and it says, do you have a firewall? Is it switched on? What's your password policy? Do you make sure that you use an admin account on your computer to install new apps? Do you basically do the absolute bare minimum of obvious stuff? But there's like 500 bare minimum obvious things, and it gives you this structure to step through and do all of the things. So I think as an annual exercise, it gives me great solace and great heart that there's a framework I can step through, and there's no real big surprises on it. It reveals any changes in legislation. It's always being updated annually. And then you know that you've done what it takes to fend off the most obvious of attacks. So that's Cyber Essentials, and it's focused on data security. This thing here, Cyber Assurance, they don't say it anywhere, but I think it's a kind of GDPR layer on top of data security. So this is more about governance. This is more about making sure that the processes that you follow adhere to a sensible level of excellence. So some of the questions are, do you have a risk assessment? Have you done a risk assessment? Have you got an information asset register? Have you got a physical asset register? What's your plan for, if one of those assets gets exploited? Did it contain data? What are you going to do about it? And it just gives you a chance to say, okay, yep, I will plan for something that hopefully won't happen, but then I have done a really good job of making sure that I've thought it through in the peace and quiet of, a lovely quiet week at work when there is no crisis, there is no disaster movie unfolding. Isn't that the best time to think about these things? So strong recommend for the UK government Cyber Essentials programme and the UK government-backed Cyber Assurance programme. Various different providers can give you a spreadsheet and a certificate. I use this IASME company. They've been completely fine. Also, you get to download the questions in advance and have a look. So, if you're not a UK company, I would still absolutely, go and get this free download. And if you feel that you can answer all of those questions, and if you feel that your current processes are up to scratch, fantastic. It's a free resource to allow you to sleep that little bit easier at night. Big recommend. So enough of suggesting other people's products, but it's all to our great benefit. If we know that our customers are operating in a secure manner, that's definitely to our benefit. I can't say it on the internet, but customers, watch your notifications this coming week, because that thing I told you about a couple of weeks ago, well, we've had our period of notice, and so now that thing is happening next week. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, check your notifications. If you do know what I'm talking about, check your notifications. All in the interests of making sure that our security is number one, and then we can all have a lovely quiet summer where all we think about is publishing books, and we don't think about anything nefarious or difficult like security breaches or data problems. Who wants that? No one, that's who. Great. So yeah, that's the link to that cyber assurance thing. Enjoy. And I put that under reach because, I don't want to sort of stick and carrot you too much and go heavy on the stick, but there are, insert here cautionary tales about how easy it is for your data to get stolen and your processes to allow bad actors to make your life more difficult than it has to be. Just go and do it. It's fine. It's good. It'll take 20 minutes to scan the questions, and you'll either think, yep, that's fine, or, oh yeah, she's right, I do need to do this. So it's win-win either way. What's next? What's next is finally getting onto the consonants bit. Hurrah! I'm going to go and look at prices in consonants. And I've put the throwaway line there. It's not just a number. Because it's one of those bits of data where, you know, in consonants, what we try and do, and if you've not seen it, this is consonants. Hello, consonants. This is the metadata page where all the stuff is. This is everything that goes into an Onyx message. Onyx is the XML standard by which everyone in the publishing industry communicates with each other. There's nothing hard about it, there's just a lot of it. But it means that every time we say we're talking about a bit of data now, everybody is very clear exactly what bit of data we're talking about because it's labelled. So this is the page, this is the metadata page that people put their information in. Onyx message gets generated, same data gets used to fill in a spreadsheet, fill in advanced information sheets, make your catalogue. One version of the truth. You'll hear that a lot. So on this page, because there's so much data, what we try to do is expose people to the absolute bare minimum to start with, and then kind of adopt this sort of consent-based approach to flooding your brain with data. So let's go to the pricing bit and I'll say what I mean. Here we are on the pricing bit for the Big Book of Cats. And the Big Book of Cats comes in 4 different flavours. It's got 4 products. Now, in publishing, naming things is very important. No one does it. Oh, I had to sit on my hands at the SYP conference when some other speakers were talking about titles and books and editions and formats. Like, all of those words are inappropriate and vague, and you have to use correct words if you want to be understood clearly by everyone. Anyway, so these are products. Sorry it sounds so unromantic, but that's just the way it is. There's an audio, there's a B format hardback, there's a B format paperback, and there's an EPUB. That's not that's not important right now. The important thing is that they all have prices. And look, the B format hardback has a price. It says £9.99, and it's prefixed by a Great British pound sign. But it's kind of just a number floating there. It's £9.99. And if you were to ask, you know, a chap on the Clapham omnibus, what is a price, then they'd probably say something like £9.99. But I wanted to invite you to consider that there are many other aspects of a price, which most of the time, as I say, we don't really want to bore you with. It gives you too much clutter and doesn't actually get to the nub of the matter. So if you're just coming here wanting to see what the GBP price is, there it is for that particular product. But if we double click to see what more can be revealed, then we'll see first of all that we've got multiple boxes for different currencies. So the one that we're talking about is £9.99, but that's for the GBP including tax price. Notice that there isn't one for an excluding tax price for GBP. Then we've got a US dollar excluding tax price, a euro excluding tax price, and that currently isn't filled in at the moment, an Australian dollar including tax, and a Canadian dollar excluding tax box. So already we can see that, well, you can put in a price, but if you want to be in control of the prices in different currencies, then you have an opportunity to do that. And I should say, the consonants code base is eminently configurable. And so these are just the mixtures of prices, of currencies and tax codes that this particular client is interested in. But there could be 180 odd different prices here. It just depends what you want to be in control of, and what you want to specify. So if you're a client and you're thinking, yeah, but what about the yen? Then drop us a line, and the yen will appear in your a box for the yen will appear in your pricing area. So we've got these things. We've also got this sort of tax aspect to it, and that's really important, because if the price that you are typing in should contain tax, then you need to know that the number you're typing in is the one that contains tax, and vice versa. There are ramifications, both commercial and legal, if you think that you're entering one number and you're entering the other. What else have we got here? We've got these rather appealing information boxes, which I'll click on. And this gives us a little bit more information about what we're looking at here. So this is the GBP consumer recommended retail price for a product. And then we give some information about how we've structured it, and links through to the code lists from this lingua franca, this Onyx XML standard, so that we can see in more detail what this means. And on that code list, you'll be able to see all sorts of different price types, like RRP or special or promotional or unset, that sort of thing. And then the next option is the price type qualifier, and this is the consumer price. So if I just close this for a moment and draw your attention to the heading of this whole region, let's cancel this for a moment, you can see that it says consumer RRP. So we're layering on more and more complexity about what this seemingly simple number is. We thought it was just the number 9.99. Then we see that it's got a currency code, so it's in GBP. Then we see that it includes any tax. Then we see that it's actually a type of a price called the consumer RRP. And if we scroll down a little bit, we can see that there's a different region called the library RRP. And again, Constance is configurable. If you wanted to see special pricing, corporate pricing, membership pricing, if you wanted to be able to structure those, which you might want to do if you're an institution, then those regions can appear on this page for your account as well. Now this big book of big cats does not have any library RRP prices, but it's the same sort of thing. We can add those in. So that's all, super interesting. One other interesting aspect to this is that we know that Feline Press is imaginary, but as a UK publisher, we are pricing primarily in the currency of the geography where we're located, which is GBP, but we're also wanting to store other prices for when we do export sales. And so we sort of anchor ourselves in our home currency. But then because we know that that's this client's home currency, we can say, well, you've put in a USD price, and that's interesting because it's not quite on a par with your home currency. Let's edit this price and see how we can really sort of exaggerate this to make it even better. We'll change that one to $112.95 and this one to $195. That's how to do publishing, isn't it? Just ratchet up your retail prices. So now we've got a couple of problems, haven't we? We've got a little flag here that's saying, good Lord, well, that's over 800% of your home currency. You absolutely sure that you want to do that? Now, you'll notice that Constance is not saying, no, a level has been exceeded, you're not allowed to do that. You can do what you want with your pricing. We are not in control of you, and we're not going to stop you from making commercial choices, but we are going to allow code to present information to you in a way where you might want to consider it. So if you are happy that the USD ex-tax price works out at today's currency exchange rate, foreign exchange rate, to be over 800% of your GBP price, that's fine. If you're not happy about it, then click on here and it'll give you a little bit more information why, or what to do about it. So we just narrate what's going on here, raise a support ticket if you want to see additional prices, like we said. And then we go and get the current exchange rate. So 1 GBP equals apparently 1.2884 USDs. And then here's a calculation. This would be, if you use that exchange rate and you do a direct translation, you'd get 12.87, but your price is over 800% of that. And here's more of that calculation. So again, I think it's a really good example of the kind of philosophy of consonants, which is we are going to use code, we are going to use computers to surface insights for you, but we're not going to get in your way, and we're not going to sort of rather parochially tell you what to do, but we are going to give you that information and you can act on it or otherwise. Let's go the other way. This one is 15% of GBP. Arguably much more important to know because you're going to be losing money. I suppose it doesn't matter too much, except for maybe reputation damage if you're eye-wateringly expensive. But if you're actually giving things away, then we need to know about that. So again, a bit of working out there so that you can see what's going on. Now, it will be really useful, wouldn't it, to set up some sort of search in Data Studio to surface this sort of thing as well, because then you can run a report to see all of these patterns at the sort of larger group level. So let us know if you'd like a hand setting that sort of thing up. But let me also finish off this look at the work level. Let's have a look at one last area down here, and it's Apple agency pricing. And we have this, it's a bit odd, isn't it, really, to have one retailer taking up a whole region on the metadata page. It's just that Apple agency pricing is a kind of a known gotcha in the trade. I don't really know why it is, but there are major ebook distributors operating today who cannot seem to get Apple agency pricing right. So I think it's worth just mentioning this capability of consonants, which we've been doing for more than 10 years and getting bang on right every time. It's just such a complex area, I suppose, that it's easy to get wrong if your code doesn't quite hit the spot. So some of the considerations, if you were to not rely on consonants to calculate agency prices, some of the considerations that Apple themselves go to are, it's not enough just to look at the ebook information. Their recommended price will change based on what the pricing of other formats is. Their set price points will change depending on the geography, depending on the sales rights, depending on the different tax rates for different geographies. And these things can change a lot of the time. It's sort of related in a funny sort of way to, do you remember that time when the UK VAT rates changed overnight? And we were so relieved that we'd written consonants the way that we did, because it meant changing one field's tax rate, as opposed to having to change, a million pricing records where the tax might have been baked in. So yes, so things change, don't they? Code changes and requirements change and legislation changes and other people's internal commercial processes change. So all I would say is it's a safe bet to rely on consonants to calculate your Apple agency pricing. And then this gets sent out in Onyx feeds as appropriate, so that not only do you not have to enter Apple prices, you don't have to send them anywhere. You are responsible for putting in the base price, and then Constance will calculate the rest. So if I were to click on edit here, we're not going to see a whole bunch of you typing in data. All we're going to see is one field that says, what do you want the type of price setting approach to be? Leave it as auto. I mean, you can choose some other ones. And then this is what Constance generates. So again, what we're trying to do is surface the insights, the information that's interesting, but really try to relieve you of the burden of managing it to a very sort of refined level, or managing moving calculations that go wrong half the time. Apparently, other people's software, which we mutter 50 times a day. Last bit on this. If you scroll up to the top of the pricing section on the metadata page, you'll see that there's some kind of settings stuff. And if you are driven to want to do more than type in $9.99 for your UK tax price, consumer price, then we do let you do that. It's just, please definitely know what you're doing, and raise a ticket if you want some advice on it. So let's click into edit this. We've got supplier specific values. And actually, to be honest, this is a bit of a killer feature in Constance, because let's click on supplier specific values and see what we get. We can set different prices and different availabilities and different publication dates for different suppliers at the product level. So there's the hardback, there's the paperback, there's the ebook, there's the audio file. That is very handy when, for instance, you publish the paperback in the UK, and then you might want to have the same product, in as much as it's got the same ISBN 13 printed on the back. You might want to have a different publication date in North America for that. So this sort of thing enables you to manage that. Hitting the back button, I want to show you the ability to change prices though. So again, let's click onto edit. I clicked manage supplier specific values there, but here I've got advanced edit, I've got a price history, super helpful, and I've got pre-configured suppliers as well. If we take a quick look at advanced edit, do you see what I mean? We're sort of drilling down into more and more complexity. You shouldn't have to go here, but if you are driven to do it for some reason that I daren't think about, then you can do that. So this is the Constance internal ID for this price record. It's not just a number. It's not just the number $9.99. It's an entire record on its own. And if we click in to have a look at what that looks like, all sorts of information attached to a price. So we've got the currency, the price type qualifier, the status code, the price type. Remember we talked about whether it includes or excludes tax, and these are all Onyx codes. So we know that when you see these in Constance, they are going to make sense to other Onyx compliant systems. You can have dates that these prices are effective to. So this price can sort of exist not as a sort of a universal price for all time, but you can have multiple prices of the same type and on the same product, but with different price ranges. And you can have extra tax information and multi-tax information as well. So if this is a mixed media product where one part of it is taxable and the other part is at a zero rate or untaxed, then you can manage that complexity as well. I would definitely raise a ticket before wading into any of this. Not really because you can break stuff, although you can certainly send out odd information into the world if you really try to. But because the chances are we've got an easier way of adding data in that kind of, there's one box and you put one number in. Chances are we've got a way for you to achieve your objectives that don't require as much as effort as if you were going to start playing around with this area. As an example, we've got clients who, when Consonance generates their onyx, at the point where it's just about to leave Consonance and go to one of the recipients, Consonance takes the home currency price and converts it based on the current foreign exchange rate, and converts it in a way that is that has been prescribed by the client. So if we need to convert from the Belgian euro price into the French euro price, accommodating the correct VAT structures for the particular product, clients don't have to enter all of that information. Clients enter their home currency, and because code is good at calculating things like this, we run that on the fly. So clients don't see the end price that changes every day within the interface. That's all handled behind the scenes. So absolutely get in touch with us to discuss your idiosyncratic requirements, because there's no bottom to the weirdness that you might encounter with this sort of thing. So don't think that what you see in the interface is it. Always get in touch, and hopefully we've seen it before, and if we haven't, then we can do something about it anyway. I think those were all the things I wanted to say about pricing. I think let's just see those last other two delicious little bits. The price history is fun, because price history is very useful for knowing how things went up and down, and to be honest, and who changed things. Now Emma at Feline, that's me, was the problem person here, changing the USD from that to that. Sometimes you really need to be able to keep a track of these things, because you might want to chart this against volume sales. You might, we're keeping enough information in this sort of audit trail so that you can run experiments and change your pricing, see what happens to volume sales and value sales, and then you have insights, don't you? Whether something is sensitive to pricing, or whether you can really improve your profitability. I nearly said productivity. Maybe both. Why not both? Great. I'm sure there's more to say about pricing, but come on, sunny out there. We need to crack on. What's next on the list? Yes, Thema qualifiers. Again, this was driven by me having to sit on my hands a little bit when learned folk at the SYP conference were talking. I really wanted to do a 20-minute monotone monologue about Thema qualifiers when some subject classification chat came up. But you can't do that, can you? You can't just wrestle a microphone from people and start droning on. But you can now. Here I am in the comfort of my own home. Do feel free to mute me whilst you get on with some work. But this is good. Thema qualifiers is what I want to tell you about. When I say Thema, do you know what I mean? I expect you do. I expect you think, yes, that's that thing that replaced BIC. And you have to think that's that thing that replaced the BIC subject classification scheme, because BIC is an organisation, so that would be nonsensical. But yes, the Thema subject classification scheme is a more global type of classification scheme than the older BIC subject classification scheme. And you may still be adding BIC codes to your products and your works. And that might be because there are certain recipients that you have that still haven't quite managed to upgrade to the modern way of doing things. What I want to talk about today is skip those basics and let's have a look at Thema qualifiers. And the best way to do that is to go back to our metadata page and go to subjects, and let's have a look at some in action. So here we are in the subjects bit. We've got some keywords. Keywords are like free text, ways to describe what's going on in the work. Don't waste your keywords. There's no point in putting in strings, as in, words, strings that are going to get to the internet anyway. So don't put the same words that's as is in the title or the subtitle. Don't put in words that are already in reviews and main marketing descriptions. Make the most of these, because, and I don't know if you can believe this, but when you send a data feed to certain recipients, they will truncate, they will chop the keywords that you send to them after a certain number of characters. So they might only read the first 120 characters of your keywords. So if you're in the habit of adding a bazillion keywords in because you think, I've got to do this from all angles, we're going to put in all of the historical periods that it's relevant to and all of the names of the characters, and we'll come up with a load of synonyms for the words in the title, and and if this region goes on and on and on for pages, it may be absolutely futile for people like, well, you know who, that big retailer on the internet. So read up on keywords, but we're not talking about keywords today. We're talking about Thema qualifiers. So scrolling down a little bit, Thema. So this work, the big book of big cats, has got some Thema codes, Thema subject codes attached to it already. And you'll notice that we don't see any indication of products at this stage. And that is because subject classifications live at the work level. There's no point in if there are 5 products on a work, how awful would it be to have to replicate effort typing in the same thing 5 times? It's pretty safe to say that the subject classification of the hardback is going to be the same as the paperback. And if that's not true, then your data model is wrong, and you should be looking at 2 different works. So it's quite a good tell. Compared to, you can totally have a contributor that should only have contributed to the audiobook because they're the narrator, and they're nothing to do with the hardback. That's fine. That's at product levels, or a sort of intersection between product and work. But with subject classification codes, we are safe thinking of them as being at work level. That's the parent of the products. The work is like the intellectual property. You don't sell the work. It's like the manuscript level. It's on the same level as contracts. But the products, those are the things that you sell in exchange for money or metrics. So that's the hardback, the paperback, the downloadable audio WAV file, that sort of thing. Great. So we've got some Thema subject codes, cats as pets, cats including big cats, but then we've got some other codes, and they do not start with a letter, they start with numbers. And these are the Thema qualifiers. Not that many people use them. So let's have a look to see what is even going on here. So first of all, I've clicked into edit, and now we are into our editing area for Thema codes. And it's like a tree, because that's the way that this sort of data is structured. Let's take an example. Let's just start with A, the arts. Click on this expandy thing here, and we see, okay, within A, the arts, we've got all of these. What about in AK? Oh, okay, goes down even further. Oh, book design, bookbinding. That's very topical, isn't it? What about here? There we go. And now we're at the bottom of the tree because there's nowhere further to go. So that's how this thing works. The way that Consonance has implemented this idea conforms to the recommendations from editor, which is to say, don't have, if you want to have AKHM, manuscripts and illumination, as a Thema code, don't also have AKH and AK, because that's kind of baked in to AKHM. It's kind of redundant, and it's busy work, and it's clutter if you were to send both AK and AKHM. So for that reason, when I tick AKH, boink, I now cannot tick AK. And if I now tick AKHM, AKH is going to get unticked. Boink. So Constance is going to see you right there. It's going to make sure that you're not kind of wasting data transfer, wasting complexity. It's going to allow you to select and encourage you to select at the level that is kind of the most refined, the most appropriate. So in order to help you figure out which of these you should be ticking in the first place, we include all of the editor notes. So these are taken sort of verbatim from what editor advised, and we sort of sought permission for that to be included within Constance. So you don't have to go and look at the PDF, you can have a look here. The other thing that we've done is make that searchable. So if we were to now search in here for cats, this is now whittled down my list, not only looking at the sort of letters that appear here, but looking in the notes for searches for strings that match that search. So it's a really good idea if you're publishing a book and you want it to be marked up really well. Pop in some search filters here, some options to the search filter, and read the notes. And you'll see in here somewhere it'll say cats. There you go, cats. Read the notes and start to sort of feel in your bones how these categories have been structured and brought together, and how they can be best used to describe your book. Because this is just sales gold, isn't it? Being able to mark up your metadata and direct other systems and direct people towards what you want them to perceive it as. It's worth its weight in gold. It's easy, actually. It's easy money, because this doesn't cost anything extra to do a good job of marking up your text here. Right, finally getting to the bit that I want to tell you about. So all of these things that begin with letters, these are like the kind of normal subject classification codes that you will be really familiar with. I go straight to FM fantasy, straight to FMJ for cozy fantasy, and then I pick whichever ones I want, and that's just fine. But these are the interesting ones for today down here. We've got place qualifiers. Let me untick things so that we can see it all squished up. We've got place qualifiers. We've got language qualifiers. We've got time period qualifiers. We have got educational purpose qualifiers. And we've got interest qualifiers, and then down at the bottom we've got style qualifiers. And these they take a sidestep from subject codes. And they're much more sort of focused on these different ways of describing things. And I think it solves a real problem. I think it solves having to structure keywords in such a way that you get all of your time periods in. I think it stops the subject classification bit from being too clagged up. And I think that it provides, a really interesting structure for your... Why can't I collapse? For your, way of marking up your works. So let's have a look to see starting from the bottom, what might be of interest. So in style, that's things like, it covers quite a range of things actually. We've got some lovely kind of art descriptions. Whenever I open this, I always feel a bit sort of go into a little reverie about all these lovely types of art that we've got. But look, we've also got musical styles as well. So it's really rich, and this has been going on for a while. So I will challenge you to look for the style that is relevant to your work and see if you can't come up with something. Point on that actually. If you don't see a suitable qualifier or a suitable subject classification, then editor are really open to taking good ideas. So you could absolutely, funnel it through us if you like, but drop a line to editor saying, come up with a new possible qualifier, what do you think? And they'll either say, yeah, that already exists, go and look there, or they'll say, great, we'll talk about it at the next supply chain meeting. So we've got interest qualifiers, so these are like relating to the stages of life, some, kind of flagging kind of things, interest ages and levels, which can be sort of layered on the interest age stuff for the children's books. We've got educational purpose, that's nice. We've got time period qualifiers, and when I was just sort of preparing for this beforehand, I went down a right rabbit hole looking at these lovely descriptions of, the geological time periods and then prehistory. And it's quite funny actually, because when I did a degree when I was a kid, I did an archaeology degree, so that's my prehistory bit, and now I'm doing a geology degree at the Open University, so that's this bit. So I'm just working my way through Thema qualifiers. Where will I go next? Who knows? Then we've got language qualifiers. So again, you don't have to clag up your keywords. Use these predetermined excellent qualifiers. And then we've got place qualifiers. And I enjoyed looking at the solar system as well, and like poor old Pluto, no longer in the planets bit, is it? And then like the moon is a subset of the Earth, so that was a bit funny as well. Anyway, so you can have a lovely time looking at that. Use the search capability available here. And then once you've chosen them, you can move them around so that you can order them, and they appear in the kind of the order of importance that you consider that you want your recipients to see it in. I've just seen the time. Time marches on. So let's see what else I was going to mention today. I do want to just finish off. We might have to. We'll do that one next week. The bulk pub date updates, because we're running out of time. So what I'm going to show you now, we're going to nip over to the data studio and we're going to have a look at a very handy view of just to finish off on our Thema codes. So data studio, we haven't got any filters on this particular search. It's landed on rights deals for the time being, but let's have a look to see what we've got here. Hello, Thema list. So this is a list that has been painstakingly put together that gives you ever more insight into how your works are coded and whether there's anything additional that you could do to make sense of them. So look at this. One or more subjects require an educational purpose qualifier, but none is specified. One or more subjects require an interest level qualifier, but none is specified. So have a great time doing a search, looking at your data here, seeing if there's anything of interest. So yeah, I think we're sort of out of time. So we'll do bulk pub data updates next week. But until then, I think I'll wish you a wonderful weekend.